I refused to raise my husband's affair children now that he and the woman he cheated with passed away. When I first met my husband over 23 years ago, I never could have imagined my life turning out this way. I was young, full of hope, and deeply in love with him. We built a life together that, to anyone looking in, seemed picture perfect. We had 2 beautiful daughters, a home we cherished, and memories that were supposed to last a lifetime. I truly thought I knew him, at least. I thought I did until everything fell apart. I found out earlier this year that my husband had been having an affair with a girl barely in her 20s. She was half his age, young enough to be our daughter. The affair started in 2020, and for the past few years, he had been leading a double life right under my nose. It wasn't some brief fling either. In March of this year, his affair partner gave birth to twin boys, his children. I found out the day the twins were born. It was a revelation that knocked the breath out of me, leaving me gutted. The man I had loved for over 2 decades wasn't the man I thought he was. We were already in the process of separating. The discovery of the affair shattered whatever illusions I had left, and we immediately started working on the divorce. It wasn't just about ending our marriage, it was about untangling the mess he had made of our finances. He had used our shared accounts to support this woman and their secret life together. I was left picking up the pieces, trying to figure out how to move forward while still taking care of our 2 teenage daughters, who were equally devastated. We argued often during those last months. We said things we couldn't take back. He became someone I didn't recognize, angry, bitter, and, at times, downright cruel. He blamed me for his cheating, saying I had pushed him away. He even tried to kick me out of our house, which, to be clear, was my childhood home and not part of the assets we shared. The man I had once loved had turned into a stranger. But then, just as the divorce was nearing its final stages, tragedy struck. My husband and his affair partner were killed in a car accident. Both of them, gone in an instant. Somehow, miraculously, the twin boys survived. They were only a few months old, too young to understand what had happened, too young to know that their world had been turned upside down. When I got the news, I didn't know how to feel. My emotions were all over the place: shock, anger, sadness, and, if I'm honest, a bit of relief. The man who had betrayed me was dead. The divorce would never be finalized. It was over in a way I hadn't expected. But the consequences of his actions were far from over. The twins were now orphaned, and neither set of grandparents could take them in permanently. My husband's parents were in assisted living, unable to care for 2 infants. His only aunt, who had always been adamantly child-free, refused to even consider it. On the affair partner's side, her parents were also unable to provide long-term care, and her only sister lived overseas. No one seemed to know what to do with these babies, these innocent lives caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. That's when the pressure started. First, it was my in-laws, pleading with me to take the twins in. After all, I was still legally married to their father when he died. His assets, everything we had built together, were set to pass to me and our daughters. They argued that, since I had the means to care for them, I should step up and do so. But how could I? How could I take in the children who were the living reminders of my husband's betrayal? How could I raise them alongside my own daughters, who wanted nothing to do with them? The in-laws weren't the only ones. The affair partner's parents also reached out, desperate for someone to take the boys. And then there was my own mother, who seemed to have developed some kind of grandkids fever, as if the twins were her own flesh and blood. She kept telling me that I should open my heart, that these babies deserved a chance, that they were innocent. Innocent, yes, but also not my responsibility. My friends, at least, were on my side. They told me it wasn't my place to raise those children, that I didn't owe them or my late husband anything. But the guilt weighed on me. I knew that if I didn't take them in, they'd end up in the foster system. I couldn't stomach the thought of that. But at the same time, I knew in my heart that I wasn't capable of loving them the way they deserved. I would be the evil stepmother, no matter how hard I tried not to be. The resentment would always be there, lurking beneath the surface. And my daughters, well, they'd already made their feelings clear. Both of my girls, 14 and 16, hated their baby half-brothers. I had tried, in the early days of the affair coming to light, to get them to spend time with their father and the twins. But they refused, and I didn't push them. How could I when I was grappling with my own anger and hurt? They were old enough to understand what had happened, and there was no way to sugarcoat the situation. The babies were the reason our family was torn apart. And while I didn't blame the boys themselves, it was impossible to ignore the fact that their existence was a constant reminder of their father's infidelity. I knew that if I brought those babies into our home, it would only make things worse. My daughters would resent me, resent them, and our already fractured family would break apart even further. I was barely holding things together as it was, raising 2 teenagers on my own. I didn't have the energy, the emotional capacity, to take on 2 infants as well. I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, mentally. I was still trying to rebuild my life after the affair, still trying to figure out who I was without my husband. And then there was the practical side of things. Raising 2 babies wasn't just about love and care, it was about money, time, and resources. I was already stretched thin. And while I had the financial means to support my daughters, adding 2 more children to the mix would be overwhelming. I wasn't in my 20s anymore, with boundless energy and optimism. I was 45, and the idea of starting over with babies was something I just couldn't wrap my head around. I tried explaining all of this to my mother, to my in-laws, to anyone who would listen, but they didn't seem to understand. My mother, in particular, was relentless. She kept telling me that I was being selfish, that these babies needed me, that I was the only one who could give them a good life. But I couldn't help but think about what kind of life that would be. Would I be able to love them the way they deserved? Or would I always see them as the products of my husband's betrayal? The clock was ticking. I had to make a decision soon. The boys were temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. But it wasn't a long-term solution. If I didn't step up, they would be placed into foster care. The thought made me sick. But so did the idea of raising them myself. I didn't want to be the villain in their story. They didn't ask for any of this. They were innocent, blameless. But I knew I wasn't the person who could give them what they needed. My heart just wasn't in it. And if I forced myself to take them in out of guilt or obligation, I knew it would only end in disaster, for me, for my daughters, and for those boys. So here I am, torn between what I know is right for me and my family, and the guilt of leaving 2 innocent children to a fate I can't control. The decision is mine to make. And I know that no matter what I choose, there will be consequences. But I also know that I can't raise those babies. I just can't. And maybe that makes me a terrible person. Or maybe it makes me human. Either way, I have to live with the choice I make. And that's something I'll have to carry for the rest of my life.
I followed the girl I love since she don't want to talk to me and keep avoiding me. I never thought I'd be in this situation. I don't see myself as a bad person. And I never meant any harm. But here I am, feeling conflicted, unsure if I've crossed a line or if I'm just trying to do the right thing. It all started with her, this girl I've loved for what feels like forever. We used to be so close. Best friends even. I don't know when things changed exactly. But they did. Now she avoids me, and I'm left wondering what went wrong. It's hard to describe how much I care about her. She's the kind of person who lights up a room just by being in it. The type of person you want to protect and keep safe. That's all I've ever wanted, to keep her safe. I've told her how I feel. Confessed my feelings. But that only seemed to make things worse. She friend-zoned me immediately after. But even that's a stretch now. We barely talk. It's like she doesn't even want to interact with me anymore. I never expected her to love me back. I mean, part of me hoped. But I understood when she said she didn't feel the same way. What I didn't understand was why she started avoiding me completely. She told me we were still friends. But how can we be friends when she won't even look at me? It's like everything we had before, years of friendship, late-night conversations, shared jokes, just disappeared overnight. That's when I started to worry about her. I couldn't shake this feeling that something might happen to her. That she might need help and I wouldn't be there. I know it sounds irrational. But I love her, and that love makes me anxious. What if she's walking home late and something happens? What if she's out with her friends, and someone tries to hurt her? These thoughts consumed me, and I couldn't just sit by and do nothing. So, I decided to follow her. Not in a creepy way. Not because I wanted to stalk her, but because I wanted to be there if something went wrong. If she didn't want to talk to me, fine, but I could still make sure she was safe. I'd hang back, keep my distance, but watch her walk home. Make sure she got there without any trouble. I figured that if something happened, I'd be there to help. And maybe she'd see that I was just looking out for her. The problem is, I think she's noticed. I've seen her glance over her shoulder when I'm walking behind her. And sometimes I catch her looking around nervously. That's the last thing I wanted, to make her feel unsafe. I'm not a bad person. I'd never hurt her or anyone else. But now I'm stuck in this situation where I don't know what to do. I've put myself in this position where I feel responsible for her safety. But I don't want her to think I'm some kind of stalker. I've been overthinking it a lot lately. What if she thinks I'm dangerous? What if she's afraid of me now? The thought makes me sick because that's the opposite of what I want. I just want to be there for her, like I always have been. I know she's avoiding me, but I don't understand why. Did I do something wrong? Did confessing my feelings ruin everything that badly? I didn't think it would end up like this. I've thought about talking to her. But how do I approach someone who won't even acknowledge me? Every time I try to say something, she turns away or walks in the other direction. It's like she's gone out of her way to avoid any confrontation. Any conversation. I don't want to scare her. And I don't want to push her away any more than I already have. But I also don't want her to think I'm following her with bad intentions. I know I need to stop. I can't keep doing this. Trailing behind her like some kind of shadow. It's not fair to her. And it's not healthy for me. But I can't seem to shake this need to protect her. To be there just in case. It's like a compulsion. Something I can't control. And I keep telling myself that I'm doing the right thing. That it's for her safety. But deep down I know it's more complicated than that. I love her. That's what it all comes down to. And love makes you do stupid things sometimes. Maybe I'm holding on too tightly to what we used to have. Maybe I'm hoping that by being there, by showing her I care, she'll realize that I'm someone she can depend on. Someone she can trust. But the truth is, I'm probably pushing her further away. I don't know what to do anymore. Should I just let her go completely? Stop following her and hope she's okay? Should I try to talk to her, even though she won't give me the chance? I'm stuck between wanting to protect her and not wanting to come off as creepy or controlling. I don't want to scare her, but I also don't want her to think I don't care. Part of me knows that the right thing to do is to back off. To give her space and let her live her life without me hovering around. But another part of me is terrified that something will happen to her. And I won't be there to help. It's a constant battle in my head. And I'm not sure which side is going to win. In the end, I just want her to be happy. To be safe. And if that means I need to stop following her, to stop trying to insert myself into her life, then maybe that's what I'll have to do. It's hard to let go. Though, it's hard to walk away from someone you care about. Especially when you're convinced that you're the one who can keep them safe. I don't know if I'm the asshole in this situation. Maybe I am. Maybe I've crossed a line without even realizing it. But all I've ever wanted was to protect her. To be there for her in whatever way I could. I just wish she could see that. And I wish things didn't have to end up like this.